There's a knock on the door. There's a third bloke going around saying he's going to be the Prime Minister of Australia, and this is Craig Kelly, which is a fascinating study. We've seen this big discussion about the WHO treaty over the night, but also, he's been going all over regional Australia when his own seat's at risk down in Sydney.
On the Flow Morning Show and at the Flow News 24 desk, we're 2 days out to the federal election 2022. And who will get your vote? And there's been some interesting commentary in the last 24 hours on the two leaders, but maybe also around other leaders. Rikki Lambert is with me from the Flow News 24 desk. And Rikki, how have you seen what has been an extraordinary couple of incidents involving both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition?
Yeah, we certainly have, Wayne. Saturday is Australia's biggest job interview. Maybe as many as 40% of Australians have already put their vote in on who they think should be Australia's next Prime Minister. But use that job interview analogy. Anthony Albanese is kind of turned up, and then you go, who are all these other people? He said, I brought my mum and my dad and my friends because if you've got any hard questions, I'm just going to handball it across to them.
Yes, handballing it across to them. He didn't want to handball to anybody. He took off and left the West Australian Premier.
Yeah. Mark McGowan, Albo? Albo? Where have you gone?
Excuse me. And the press pack left. They were seen chasing Albo, and he then got to a room, closed the door, and everyone sort of stood there and looked at each other and said, that's extraordinary. Normally, politicians are looking to get the press in front of them, and he just basically ran the other way.
Yeah, the Albo sound is boop, 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 is reversing and getting out of there, whereas Scott Morrison comes into the job interview, he sees the job opportunity, says, can I have that? I'll have that, thanks. He's the bulldozer. He's charging in, trying to get the job, and he's charging over the kids in Tasmania.
He's taking them out in rugby tackles and on soccer pitches, non-contact sport too, that soccer. But look, it is an interesting one because overall we get the two different personalities here. It's almost like Albo doesn't want the job, and on the other hand, you've got Scott Morrison, who has got no one from his team, nowhere to be seen. It's just Morrison in the shot, no other of his front bench are there with him. It's Morrison out there in the front as your leader.
Yeah, but then there's a knock on the door. There's a third bloke going around saying he's going to be the Prime Minister of Australia, and this is Craig Kelly, which is a fascinating study. We've seen this big discussion about the WHO treaty over the night, but also, he's been going all over regional Australia when his own seat's at risk down in Sydney.
It's a really interesting one. If I was to say, Rikki, who do you think has presented as the best leader through it? Morrison clearly has presented out there on the front line. Albanese has had all of the supporting crew there and not been able to answer the questions. But then you look at Barnaby Joyce, Pauline Hanson, and also Adam Bandt, really cited for their parties in this campaign. But one bloke who is cited is Craig Kelly, and he's made a strong stand in relation to the World Health Organisation and this treaty that is being looked at by Australia to sign. It looks like both Albanese and Morrison are behind signing for Australia if they're elected. But in the opposition now, it appears you have this man, and this is what he had to say.
This global accord that the World Health Organisation is talking about, this global pandemic accord, we will ensure that that doesn't go ahead. We'll expect a commitment from either side of politics to make sure that is rejected. We've seen how they do things in China, that lockdown in Shanghai. We cannot surrender the sovereignty of our nation, our medical decisions, to the World Health Organisation.
Yeah, Craig Kelly, we've got greater visibility on Craig Kelly simply because he's visited our broadcast areas. We unashamedly take a regional focus on what's happening in the election campaign. He's been to Mildura. He's been down to the Eyre Peninsula. We're probably at the risk of losing his own seat for doing so, but who knows? Maybe they know something we don't. Clive Palmer and the backers. Remember, Clive's running for the Senate. We'll do a bit of a wrap on the Senate probably tomorrow. But I think Craig Kelly's had a pretty good campaign compared to Albanese and Morrison, but has he been subjected to the same level of scrutiny? The press gallery's been pretty savage on both leaders, I think.
They have. Also, though, if you have a look at the articles that have been written about Craig Kelly, I think they've equally tried to put a dampener on a vote for the UAP. But I have been surprised at the lack, if you like, of interest and politically in Pauline Hanson. Normally in an election campaign, she's always front and centre, and she's out there almost on the soccer pitch with Morrison at the sideline. Only her cartoon series seems to have been the thing that has got her a lot of interest. So maybe she knows something that we don't.
I don't know. Look, I think what's important though is I get this question from kids and others is that there's a lack of political understanding. Kids and young people, and these are young people voting, don't understand how their vote relates to whether they might elect an Albanese or Morrison government. And when you look in local seats, the interest in independence, I think, is something that is really going to grow. Whether it's a minor party, whether it's an out there independent, whether it's a teal independent, I'm expecting the primary vote for the major parties to be much lower this election as people just cast around for an alternative because at the job interview they haven't been impressed with the two major applicants.
All right, it's going to be interesting. The bulldozer on one hand and the coyote running the other way on the other. It's a very interesting campaign. We'll have more for you here on the Flow News 24 desk.